Island, which is a very windy kind of place, and we have a storm that's been brewing all night. No rain, just blustery winds. I hope the power doesn't go out. So I'm continuing on chapter 5 of the Gospel of Matthew, in which he gives the core teachings of Jesus Christ here for the holiday season. So the one I'd like to read now is Matthew chapter 5, 21-22. Ye have heard that it was said by them of old time, Thou shalt not kill, and whosoever shall kill shall be in danger of judgment. But I say unto you, this is Jesus speaking, that whosoever is angry with his brother without cause shall be in danger of judgment. And whosoever shall say to his brother, Fool, shall be in danger of the council. And so, Jesus, now we're getting into the part, this is just the beginning. We'll be talking about divorce, adultery, and so forth as we move through in my broadcast to come. But here Jesus is essentially, as he put it earlier in chapter 5, I came not to destroy the law, previous law, but to fulfill it, and meaning to bring it to its next natural culmination. And so whereas the law of Moses, I haven't studied the law of Moses, but I'm assuming this from Jesus' words, whereas the law of Moses, I know from the Ten Commandments, that thou shalt not kill. Jesus is saying it's about the judgment of the heart. It's not just about, because as Yogananda writes in his commentary, this was November 1935 in his magazine, The Inner Culture, he says even to kill someone is preceded by the thought, by the intention. Okay? Now, a lot of times we might say, and not jokingly, but angrily, that I'm going to kill you, and we don't do it, and it's a good thing not to do, but nonetheless, what Jesus is saying, he's refining the law from its outer manifestation through the body, let's say, through the action of killing, back into the heart, into the mind, into the subtle body, the astral body of the ego, and what it thinks and believes and wants to do, its desires and its fears. And so that's what he means by fulfill. I don't think the word fulfill was intended to mean the be-all and end-all statement of fulfillment. I think it's wiser, based on Yogananda's overall teachings, to understand the term fulfill as taking it to a deeper level. Is there a deeper level than this? I'm not sure there is in the case of anger or violence. We know from Patanjali in the Eightfold Path, one of the proscriptions, the yamas, the don'ts as they're called, is ahimsa, made popular by Mahatma Gandhi many decades ago and continued by various people throughout the world like Nelson Mandela, Reverend Martin Lewis King Jr., and many other great souls who have taken the concept of ahimsa, harmlessness, nonviolence, to the same level as Jesus Christ intended here, and not just leaving it on the level of physical violence. No murder is possible, he writes, without first having a thought of murder in the mind. Now, he wrote that, and I thought to myself, well, I think there are acts of violence that are done in the moment. Of course, he's not talking about unintentional murder, which I think in our law is called manslaughter. But even so, I think there's, yes, even in a crime of passion, there is a thought. You know, it may be fleeting, the space between the thought and the action might be really small, but there is thought there. So I'm not negating what he's saying, but I am saying that there are murder, violence that can be done so instantaneously that it's worth mentioning anyway. Okay. So now notice that when Jesus said here, whoever is angry with his brother without cause. So how could you be angry with somebody else without a cause? So what he means by that, I think it's obvious, but just to say it, is that the brother, or the person, we don't need to talk about brothers and sisters here, the other person hasn't overtly done something or even said something that would cause you to be angry. In other words, if you really analyze that statement from a psychological standpoint, the anger that I feel towards my brother, my friend, somebody, is a judgment, is an attitude, is a point of view, is what I think about that person. I'm angry for whatever reason, but without cause. So I think that phrase "without cause" needs to be understood there. And so that really comes to what we call being judgmental towards a person. I didn't read the part that ends, "Whosoever shall say thou fool shall be in danger of hellfire," because I don't really want to get into the subject of hellfire, particularly, and what that means, and so on and so forth. But I think the important point here, and what Yogananda is talking about, the danger of judgment suggests the cosmic law of action, meaning the law of karma, which is based on the law of cause and effect. This law bestows good or bad fruition, meaning consequences, to people according to their good or bad activities. Every action produces a result in the form of a tendency, which is lodged in the mind as a mental seed. So this is really where he transits into the law of karma and really into the astral body of intention, and somewhat into the causal body, because the causal body is sort of the seed of perception. And the astral body imbues that perception with intention. It's the ego in the astral body that feels the judgment, feels the anger, but the perceptive causal mind might perceive the facts. Okay. Now, on the question of hellfire, here's what he writes. "Also, anyone who calls another a fool shall suffer from the fire of ignorance. Ignorance is hell, and it burns wisdom away." Isn't that it's both clever, but also, I think, very deep, meaning that ignorance is hell in the sense that it burns away wisdom. To overcome the wisdom of anyone by a strong suggestion of ignorance is to do them a great wrong. So what he's saying here is, when we remember, "Whosoever shall say thou fool," meaning that the person who's angry is expressing his anger to the person. And so in doing so, with the intensity that only anger can really express, it's as if we push energy towards that person and help obliterate or make confused or make unclear that person's own wisdom about what is true, about who they really are. That, okay, maybe they did something wrong or have a bad attitude or habit and so forth, but to affirm that through my anger and judgment of you is to trademark you as being that instead of a soul. So that's really what he's saying. To burn in the fire of ignorance is just as bad as causing others to be consumed in the fire of ignorance. To behold ignorance in others is to envelop oneself in the consuming fire of ignorance. So it's a two-way street. The person who's being angry and judgmental is losing touch with the wisdom of their soul. But at the same time, as I just said, that also in trademarking and sending that energy to the other person, you can obliterate in that person the wisdom of their soul, which knows that there is something greater. Now, in Yogananda's writings elsewhere, he talks about how anger upsets the nervous system, creates heat in the astral body. He talks about more of the consequential, you might say, astrally medical aspects of how anger burns up the system and makes us nervous and even fearful and restless, etc. He doesn't really mention that in here. But anger, in Swami Kriyananda's creating the Nayaswami order, and he wrote a book, there's a website called nayaswami.org, but in the book that he wrote, he talks about how anger is, and the Bhagavad Gita does also, anger is one of the hallmark characteristics that are like a dividing line between a person's spiritual advancement or not. And anger is, well, you've achieved something when, as Swami Kriyananda put it, peace is your bottom line. When there's almost nothing that can make you angry. So anger, for those of us who are devotees and so forth, also has a deeper aspect to it. That your irritability, your anger, your impulsive words along those lines are a real measure for you, a real measure of how centered in yourself and how wise you are. Along with that, the other litmus test, but I'm not going to get into it today because we're talking about anger, but just to say it, the other litmus test of our own level of spiritual advancement is the degree to which we can in turn handle the critique of other people, or how we handle the critique of other people. But I'll save that subject for another time. Okay, great souls, that's it for today. And those of you who tried to tune in at noon, I'm sorry I'm a little bit late. Okay.